Download the podcast at kcaaradio.com.
KCAA.
Do you believe in a God that satisfies? Do you believe in a God that opens eyes? Do you believe in a God that tells your lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that satisfies? Do you believe in a God that opens eyes? Do you believe in a God that tells your lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me?
It's Beyond Common Sense. It's Lanny Sense with Lanny Swerdlow, KCAA's resident gay, woke, liberal, pot-smoking, race-mixing, tree-hugging, left-handed, science-affirming, Jewish, humanist, atheist, a white evangelical Christian nationalist, worst nightmare. And welcome to Lanny Sense, which is not your worst nightmare. In fact, maybe you consider it heaven. Hey, thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to have a great show. We've got a guest here tonight, Damon Browning, and I'll be introducing him in just a little bit. He's from Portland, and he's doing this documentary on the city nightclub. So stick around. He's going to be really interesting. If you want to call in during the show when we start talking, the number is 888-909-1050. I'll remind that to you. But right now, I just want to bring your attention to an article I read in the Washington Post today. And it's about home improvement chain Lowe's, the place that's laid back Home Depot. Home improvement chain Lowe's is scaling back its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, joining the ranks of several other companies that altered their programs since the U.S. Supreme Court outlawed affirmative action in college admission or after facing a conservative backlash online. In an internal memo that was shared with the Associated Press, Lowe's executive leadership said the retailer began reviewing its DEI programming following the court's July 2023 ruling, and the company recently decided to combine its resource groups, which were for individual groups representing diverse sections of our associate population, to one umbrella organization. The retailer, and here's what's really interesting, the retailer will no longer participate in the annual survey by the Human Rights Campaign that measures workplace inclusion for LGBTQ plus employees, and will also stop sponsoring and participating in events such as festivals and parades that are outside of its business areas, i.e., it ain't going to be participating in any kind of gay pride celebration anymore. The pressure was put on Lowe's. Apparently, there's a couple other companies Tractor Supply and John Deere have given in to the pressure put on them to stop this DEI thing, which helps. It's not. Remember, diversity education and DEI is not just for gay people. It's for all minorities, and so everybody's getting screwed over. And this is this Republican thing that's just pressuring. And you could imagine if this is right now happening right now, when we have a Democratic president and a Democratic-controlled Senate, and these companies are giving in to the pressure. Can you imagine what it's going to be like if Trump wins this election? And you know what? We're all feeling so much better now that Harris is running. We were all really, our mouths were just dragging along the floor with Biden after his performance at the debate and stuff and everything. So we're all really more excited. The convention, everybody was really excited because Harris is running. But Trump is still leading, in the 4 of the 7 of the swing states. And this is what's so absolutely crazy. We've got this electoral college system. Now, you think the people would be upset about this because if you're in 43 states, nobody's paying any attention to you about the presidential race because your vote doesn't matter. Your state is going to vote either Democratic or it's going to bring Republican. So you got these 7 swing states and $320 million that the Democrats have raised. That's right, $320 million is how much Harris has raised. And a couple $100 million been raised by Trump are being mainly spent in these 7 states. They're going to be walking, talking, advertising, people knocking on their doors like crazy, trying to influence about 6% of the population of those swing states, because that 6% is going to make the difference of whether Trump is going to be president or Harris is going to be president. It's absolutely insane. And you know what? We can't have Trump president. Trump was in Arizona the other day, and he received the endorsement. He received the endorsement of the Arizona Police Association. And Trump has received the endorsement of almost every police association throughout the country. That's scary. That's scary because this guy has made it clear he has no compunction about invoking the Insurrection Act, which allows him to nationalize the National Guard and tell the police, local police, hey, go after these people who are protesting all you want. All you want. And this is what's going to happen if Trump's going to. He's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. If we here in California start staging protests against what he's trying to do, he'll just send the National Guard, and the police will just welcome being able to go after all these liberals and beating them up and knowing that they're going to get away with it. And they're doing anything. So it's absolutely, if you're gay and you're voting for Trump, you're out of your excuse me. Can I say that? Eric, can I say that word here? No, you're going to blink me if I say that. Okay, I can't say it. That's because we're over the air. Now, if we were only on kcaradio.com, then I could say it. But because we're over the air, I can't say it. Even though most of the listeners are probably at kcaradio.com and not at the, well, I don't know. Where's most of your listeners? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Listen, if you really need to get involved, you need to send some money to Idaho, to Michigan, so they can have the money. I don't know. It's really frustrating. If Trump gets elected, it's moving to Canada. Okay. Hey, last week we had a guest, Jerome, who called in to talk about his life at the City nightclub and how it literally saved his life. It was the most interesting discussion. And just by coincidence, this week, a young man by the name of Damon Browning has come down to interview me for a documentary that he is making on the City nightclub. Now, he had written me when he talked about it, and he had written to me, and this is a quote, "I actually went to the City nightclub as a teenager in the 90s, and it changed my life forever," end quote. And over the years, I have heard that time and time and time and time again from the people who went to my club. About 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they held a reunion for people who went to my clubs. Over 300 people showed up for this reunion. And I heard just one story after another from all these people, how the club was a lifesaver for them, how it changed their life, how it was the best thing. I hear all the time people tell me it was the best part of my entire life. I've never lived anything like I used to live going to that club. So the club was very notorious. It got written up in the papers. It was closed down when the police went after it, and people were just all upset because here I was promoting. It was a gay club. It was proudly gay, and I was teaching all my customers that not only should they be, that they should be accepting of the gay, they should be proud they're gay. They should be glad they're gay, because being gay in many ways is much better than being straight. But not to put down straight people. They have their purpose. But the club was really a cool place. It was better than almost any club in the city of Portland, and it was gay. And so it was wonderful. So anyway, Damon is going to be producing this documentary, which is going to document the club and the people and how it affected all their lives. So, without further ado, I would like to say welcome Damon Browning to Lanny Sense. And listen, if you want to call in sometime and talk with Damon about what he's doing, or just talk about you and what you used to do at my clubs, it's 888-909-1050, 888-909-1050. We'd love to hear from you. Damon, okay, tell us about your life at the City nightclub when you were a teenager.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're talking about like the early to mid 90s. I was about 14, I think, when I first went to the club. It was, for me, a really mostly magical experience. We went regularly with my group of friends from high school. And it was, it's been described many ways, the club. It was an interesting place in the sense that it wasn't just a dance club. There were performances, and it wasn't just drag performances. It was performance art. It was truly incredible stuff that you would see from some of the most talented people every week. And so it was definitely more than a club. And it was also, like Lanny said, it was a gay club. It was back before we were using the LGBTQ plus or queer terminology, but it was marketed as a gay and lesbian club. There were signs on the walls that said no overt heterosexual behavior. Right?
The reason, let me explain why we had that. The club had become really popular. We were advertising on television. We'd have 400 or 500 or more people come to the club every Friday and Saturday night. There was a line out the door around the block waiting to get in there, and what was happening was a lot of straight kids were coming, and a lot of the gay customers were saying, we're going to lose the club. It's not going to be gay anymore. So we made this rule: no overt heterosexual behavior, because we wanted to make sure it stayed gay. And so all these straight kids coming to the club, the guys had to dance with guys and the girls had to dance with girls. And they did. And because they wanted to come to the club, because it was such a cool place. So that was always very funny, the no overt heterosexual behavior thing there, you making guys.
Real signs, though, on the walls that warned you, which when you're a queer kid, that makes you feel safe and protected. And I can't think of another space I had as a young person who was struggling with coming out and identifying my sexuality, but I can't think of another space that allowed me that safety and that camaraderie from the other patrons, and the being in awe of the performers and Lady O and Alex the DJ and all the cute boys and all the lesbian corner. It was the dyke corner, sorry. It was just a really magical time for me. It was filled with mostly positive memories, and that's really why I wanted to try to find a way to articulate what that era was like, and what that time at the club was like, how to describe Portland, this all ages gay youth club in Portland, Oregon in the 90s. And so I started researching it. I started researching all about Lanny. I started researching all about the club. I realized that Lanny opened his first club in 1977, I believe, the year I was born.
That's the year you were born.
It was.
Oh my God!
It was
making me feel really old now.
But it was called Mildred's Palace, and it was one of the first queer youth spaces in Portland, if not the first.
It was. Well, no, the Second Foundation had a really poor excuse for a club for kids back in it would have been 1971, 72. Second Foundation was one of the early gay rights organizations in Portland, and they actually actually rent a space out in Alder above a bar, no, a block away from Doll and Penn's, a popular bar. It was a second floor space. It was a pretty good sized space, and I actually became the editor of the newspaper there called The Fountain, and they tried to do, and they did a youth nightclub on Friday and Saturday nights in the space there, and it was. I mean, it's nice because the gay kids came, but it was dismal and it was dank and it was dark and it had a crappy sound system and no lights. So it wasn't anything to be proud of. It's more like, it's better than nothing. And I always thought when I never really went to the nightclub there, but I was there many times working late on the paper, and I saw what was going on, and I thought, gee, I can do better than that. Actually, and things I really want to do better than that. I got started. It's funny. My first time when I was in college at Humboldt State College, I graduated from Cal State Los Angeles with a degree in zoology, and I moved up to Humboldt State College in Arcata, California, where I was going to pursue a degree in marine biology, fisheries biology. And the first year I was up there, I was staying in Arcata, and I was really lonely. I didn't know any gay people, and there wasn't any place for gay people to go. And then I discovered there was this restroom in the college, and people would write on the wall either their phone number or where they wanted to meet. And I wound up meeting a person that way, and he was a recent high school graduate, and we kind of had a little thing to going. And we went for a hike one day to a place called Trinidad, where the fisheries department had its research lab. And as we were walking out there, these two other guys were walking back, and Frank said, hi, Steve, hi, Ned. And they said hi to him, and they walked on. And I turned to Frank and said, who are those guys? He says, oh, they're my friends from high school. And I says, they're queer as $3 bills. He said, really? And I said, yeah, and I want to meet one of them because he's really cute. And I wound up meeting him, and we got together. Well, anyway, at the end of the first school year, I went to Newport, Oregon, where I worked for the Fish Commission of Oregon as a scuba diver, and then I came back to college. And this time, I stayed in Eureka, which is the big city, 30,000 versus Arcata, 5,000. And I found an apartment on 2nd Avenue, which was like Skid Row. That was Skid Row. And there was a dive bar down the street. The store beneath this apartment building was vacant. All lots of vacant buildings, really Skid Row. And so I got this apartment. It was dirt cheap. But I had met a few gay people for that first year. And so one of my friends was a DJ for the radio station there, and he had all this music. So I said, can you bring this music? And I went to his house, and I made these tapes, just nonstop pop music. And then I says, okay, we're going to have a party at my house. And I invited them to come over, about half a dozen people. So I said, bring your friends. And so they came to my house. It was on a Saturday night, and it wound up about 20 people there. And we played music, and they were dancing and having a great time. And I was having so much fun, throwing this party for all these people. And for the first time ever, the gay community in the Redwood Empire sort of came together. And they said, Lanny, can you do this again? Well, it turned out that my apartment became the gay community center every Friday and Saturday night for the rest of my year in college. And every day there'd be 25, 30, 35, 40 people coming to my little, barely 2-bedroom apartment. And it was a nightclub in a sense. And I loved it. I had so much fun. So when I moved to Portland, I had started a gay newspaper, and some young people, Bill Hicks was one of the major drivers of this club, came to my newspaper and said, we want to start a club for gay youth because we're tired of hanging out on street corners. And I said, okay, I'll run an article for you, see if you can, and they said, and they tried to get it together, they never got together. And I was thinking, wow, I had so much fun running that little club in Eureka what if I actually ran a youth nightclub in Portland? And so I put it together. Without Bill Hicks, it never would have happened. And I started this club there. My first club was Mildred's Palace, like you said. And the rest is history. The rest is history. But it was what it was, I was, every night, every weekend, I threw a party, and I had people help me pay for it. And it was just, can you imagine 20 years throwing a party every several nights a week? And it's really something, standing, coming in there, and you're seeing 200, 300, 400 young people dancing and having the time of their life. And if it wasn't, no one would be doing that. They'd be back on the streets. And so it's very rewarding. And when I've talked to them, like you, Damon, I've talked to these people time and time again, I hear people tell me how it was one of the best things that happened in their life was the 2 or 3 or 4 years they spent going to my nightclub. So it's wonderful that you're going to do it. So tell me, you're going to make this documentary. Have you ever done anything like make a documentary before?
Not officially. I've always loved kind of film and photography. So I've always, I've always loved those formats, but I've never done anything official like this. So it started out as a writing project, and it was going to be a story about the City Nightclub, but then I realized that the club relied so much on the music, and it relied so much on the visuals of like the performances, and we had all of those things. Lanny filmed Night Scene and Outrageous in the club. He filmed shows and broadcast them on cable access. This was revolutionary. I don't think anybody else was doing this back in the 90s. So,
This was.
Oh yeah, it did start in the 80s.
This was the Mildred's. The city got started in 1982 or 83, and we started doing the shows just a couple of years after that. So nobody was broadcasting gay shows on cable access, and I was the first one. And what really made it more on edge was the fact that it was starring teenagers for the moment. I mean, we interviewed people from the community, but the audience there and the performers are generally, it was all about teenagers. And so that was, my gosh, it's not only was it gay, but it was about gay teenagers. Talk about people freaking out. But cable access liked it, and it was one of the most watched shows they said that they had. And the reason they said they didn't have a rating system. They said the reason they thought it was the most watched show is because whenever they screwed up and they didn't get the show on, they got a whole bunch of people calling in and wanting to know why wasn't the show on.
That's a good.
Yeah, great. So anyway, go ahead, tell us some more about you're putting this. How are you putting this documentary together?
Yeah. So what I wanted to do when I realized it was bigger than just a written kind of story, I wanted to ensure that the story. So we have a bunch of archival footage from Gregory Franklin, who was a huge character in this story and a big prominent figure in the city. And he has, transferred a lot of the videos and shows digitally, and that helped kind of preserve some of the shows and stuff like that. So what I really want and what we've been working on is marrying some of the archival footage with current interviews with some of the performers and patrons of the club to tell the story, through people's experiences. And the experiences vary. It's not, my experience is not the same as everyone else's, but we want to show all sides of that, and we want to, kind of give everybody a voice that went to the club and show all of the different perspectives. I mean, it had 2 different dance floors. There was an upstairs and a downstairs. There was a game room. There were bathrooms that were notorious. It was much more than a club. But
well, now tell us about how you're how you're doing these interviews, because I thought that was really fascinating how you were pulling off these interviews.
Yeah, so one of the ways that we were able to pull off some of the interviews with with some of the prominent performers of the show was renting the old club space. So the 13 Northwest 13th address is the former City Nightclub space in Portland, Oregon. We were able to rent it now. Dan Ackerman is the studio owner, and it is a rentable studio that you can rent for film projects, animation projects, a whole bunch of stuff. Dan Ackerman is amazing, so if you ever need to rent the studio, give him a call. But I worked with him and rented the studio for the weekend and secured it, and then scheduled a bunch of interviews with former performers from the club and that are featured on some of the archival footage. So they got to come in, tour the old space, which looks very similar to the floor plan that you built. And, we kind of filmed their reactions walking around and going down memory lane. And then we went through like a formal sit-down interview where, people are sharing stories and going through some general questions and stuff like that. But it was really magical being back in that space. It was very nostalgic to walk into that club and the lobby stairs still being in the same place and the bathroom still in the exact same order. It was really wonderful to get to share that with everybody.
I saw some of the interviews you did, especially afterwards when the people got together. You could see the emotion that was coming out of them as they kind of relived this part of time. This part of their youth suddenly came back to them in real time, and it just triggered these emotions, and it was quite amazing.
Something I have found in almost every interview I do, not every interview, but almost, is some sort of emotional response from whoever I'm interviewing. There will be a time in the interview where they will think about the club, or, I've talked to folks who slept under the pool tables upstairs without you knowing, but because they didn't have a home to go to at that time. And it's, people were in very different places when they went to the club back in the day. And, I want to show all of those stories. And I think that, people looked at the club different. I looked at it as this teenage Studio 54, where others looked at it as potential housing for the night, or a place to go.
It wasn't a large section, but there was a homeless youth. A lot of them were kids who got kicked out of their homes because they were gay, and so there was a homeless youth population, and this was the only safe place they really had to go.
Yep. So it's been a really amazing experience. It's been very emotional, and I feel very privileged to get to speak to these folks who are participating in the documentary and who are just sharing their stories. That's really what it is just sharing their stories and perspectives from back in the day. And it is wonderful. It will, I think, once we kind of piece everything together, it will hopefully shape the story. And
well, you have the TV shows, and that's amazing, because there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of performances and interviews and all this kind of stuff that you can piece into it. So it's not just going to be just somebody recollecting what it was like. You're actually going to be able to show what it's like. The packed lighted dance floor, the shows that would put on there every Friday and Saturday night. So you got, that's what's going to make the documentary so interesting, because it's not just people talking. It's going to be the actual. They can talk about what it was like, and then you can actually show the viewers what it was like.
Yeah, exactly. Give them a little bit of archival footage mixed with some modern day interviews and kind of show people where they're at today. I think, looking at the archival footage, I think people will be interested in the performers and want to know more about them when they see them.
Yeah, a number of performers have contacted me wanting to know if they could get copies of their performances. Gregory Franklin spent thousands of hours putting this together because there's hundreds of hours of tape, and some of it is kind of old tape, and he had to do really work hard to salvage it and put it together. And he's got it on a single hard drive, which is like what, 500 gigabytes or something. It's just an enormous.
It's large.
Just an enormous amount of material here, and it's a recording of it's amazing. I'm really so indebted to Gregory for putting it, because if he didn't do that, I mean, the tapes were decaying, and if he hadn't put this together and put all that work together, this would be lost. The tapes have been turned over to the Portland Gay Archives. And we're talking right now with the Gay Archives of the University of Southern California. They're going to want to have these kind of things put on there. So this is why your documentary is so important, because now what's going to be interesting, we have the original material of the young people dancing and performing and this kind of stuff, and now you're talking about to them 20, 30, 40 years later, what's their lives like now, and because of that.
Yeah, and I think it will help tell the story. I think part of the challenge with this documentary is articulating how special this place was, and what it meant to some people. I've literally talked to people who have said the City nightclub saved their life. Where they had nowhere to go, that they stayed at the club 4 days a week and danced until 4 o'clock in the morning, so that they didn't have to go home or could avoid it. So it's a very special place, and for some, and I want to show all of those pieces. In the I want to talk about all of the different clubs. You had Mildred's Palace, you had Metropolis. You had the first City nightclub on Southwest 13th. You had the second one on Northwest 13th.
Burnside, yeah.
Burnside,
and
then Rage.
We have. What's sad to me is that we've documented everything at the City nightclub with lots of photographs and all the videos and this kind of stuff, including the Rage. We continue doing TV shows there, but Mildred's Palace and the Metropolis have very, very little archival material, which is really, we didn't shoot much in the way of I think we did a couple videos of Rosebud and Thorn that was done by my friend David Evans, but other than that, and that's really a shame.
Yeah, that space is the Adriana Hill Ballroom in Portland, Oregon now, which is like a typical wedding venue, and it's quite beautiful. But
the first Mildred's Palace, I got the Mildred's the first club because Bill Hicks and the other guys, they couldn't find any place, and so I figured, well, maybe I can do it. And I talked to a guy named Jim Atwood, who was a real estate agent in the Old Town area, and I said, I'm looking for a place. He says, well, Lanny, I have this place in the Pythium building, and it's been rented out to a rock promoter, and he's 3 months behind on his rent, and if next month he doesn't pay up his rent, it's yours. And he didn't pay up on his rent, and it was mine. And this Pythian ballroom it's a grand ballroom with this horseshoe-shaped balcony across in the top, and it must be 20-foot ceilings. It's just gorgeous. But of course, when I went in there, it was a wreck. The paint was peeling, the floor was destroyed, all this kind of stuff. And I didn't have the money to fix it up, really, not a lot of money. And this is where Bill Hicks came in. So he got a lot of the kids down on camp, where they used to hang out. He got about 7 of them to come in there and pitch in to help paint the place and clean it. And they worked for a month on getting that place fixed up. And we got it opened up, and it was really impressive. It was nothing like it. There was no club in Portland like it, in a grand ballroom like that. It was wonderful. And so, in about 2 years, it's going to be the 50th anniversary I opened the club up in 1977, so in 2027, that will be 50 years, and I would love to have another reunion like we had a few years ago, but to have this reunion at the Pythian Ballroom. Although I guess you're saying when you talked to them and you wanted to go in there and take some pictures of it, they wouldn't let you.
Yeah, they did decline me filming a ballroom, which I found very interesting.
Well, maybe we put some more. Maybe we can put pressure on them.
Yeah.
The way that they put, some people put pressure on Lowe's to get rid of its DEI policies. We could put pressure on, what's it called, the Ariana Ballroom?
Adriana Hill.
Adriana Hill Ballroom. What is Adriana Hill?
I don't even know.
Yeah,
It doesn't even really fit.
Well, we could put pressure on them to let us go in there and rent it for a night and bring
Absolutely.
it back. That would be an incredible experience. So anyway, where do you intend to do with this film once it's produced?
Yeah. So once the film, I truly, I don't know when we'll be finished because the footage just keeps coming. People keep raising their hands, and I keep, going down more rabbit holes. So it's actually really fun. And what I think we would like to do is, distribute the film broadly. So internationally would be ideal. We would love to submit it to film festivals. We'd love to submit it to streaming services. I want people who don't know about the City Nightclub to know about the City Nightclub. And I want queer kids today to see and understand this story, because it really is magical. I think there are pieces to the story that they will identify with, and I just think it's a powerful, moving story.
It is. And by the way, if anybody wants to call in 888-909-1050, we still have a little via line. You call in if you have something you'd like to communicate or a question you want to ask. 888-909-1050. Yeah, the thing is, kids nowadays, it's totally different than it was back then 30, 40 years ago. Nowadays we have gay straight alliances in the high schools. That was unheard of. Could you imagine a gay club in a high school back in 1981? Please. And now they have other ways to meet. They have the internet, and that's also been a bad thing for the gay bars. They've lost a lot of business because a lot of people went to the bars like me. The only reason I went to the bar, I didn't drink. I went to the bars to get picked up. And so, now you can just get on the internet and you can meet 1,000 people each night. So it's totally different. And they need to understand. And what the thing is, it was back then in the 80s when the gay lesbian community was making its advances and getting laws passed protecting us and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not sure the young people kind of recognize what we went through with Stonewall and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is, right now, we are being seriously challenged. There are people in that's going on in this election that are trying to undermine this thing. The things that I talked about at the beginning of the show, the DEI at Lowe's, these are people who are going to trying to take away our rights that we worked so hard to win. And it's what gay kids are just kind of accepting now, the gay straight alliances and all this kind of stuff. That may not be there. We've got a Supreme Court that overturned Roe versus Wade, overturned it, and they've seriously talked. Judge Clarence Thomas actually wrote in his concurring opinion overturning Roe versus Wade that maybe we should be looking and using the same rationale to overturn the Supreme Court decision that made same-sex marriage legal, that allows people to use contraceptives and so forth and so on. And they wrote, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Supreme Court wrote in the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade that nothing in this decision should apply to other decisions. In other words, the rationale that we used for overturning, this precedent, the 50-year-old precedent, Roe versus, shouldn't be applied to things like same-sex marriage, which was only 15 years ago. But can you believe the Supreme Court? No, they lie. Every one of Trump's judges that got appointed, when they testified before Congress and they were asked about Roe versus Wade, they all lied. and said, no, it's a precedent. We don't overturn precedents. And when they're saying there that they're not going to overturn Griswold and same-sex marriage and so on, they're lying. They have every intention of doing it. And that's why, we've got to get, not only do we have to get Harris elected, we've got to get a Democratic Congress, House of Representatives, and Senate. So it's really important for you to vote. If you're here in California, the way for the Democrats to overtaking the House of Representatives is through California, because there's 7 seats they're trying to flip from Republicans to Democrats. And if they can do that, and if we can control the House, if we control the Senate, you know what we could do? We can change the Supreme Court. And we can increase the number of people on it. So it's really important. Am I going off again? If you're not registered to vote, and I don't have to tell anybody here on this. Listen, you know, and if you know whether you're doing something about it or not. But we could very easily lose everything that what the young people were experiencing in my clubs, and they were coming out and becoming proud of who they were. And they fought that way. That when they came to the club, they were not proud of who they were. They were feeling insecure. They were feeling suicidal in many cases. The club turned that around. And during the last 20, 30 years, the gay community has made significant improvements with the passage of laws saying you can't discriminate, of course, with same-sex marriage. But we may be losing all that. And maybe it's going to go back to where somebody's got to open up a club for young people to go to because they're not free anymore. I don't know. It's absolutely insanity. Absolutely insanity. So, let's see. All right. So when you let's see. God, I'm running out of questions. I'm running out of questions. So, but this made, you wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't gone to the club. You said it was a life-changing experience.
Yeah, I meant I talked to other people my age that did not have that experience, and it is detrimental to my development, to coming out, to finding out who I was. Yeah, it was really I've if you went to the club, you still hold those memories. You still remember the good times, some of the bad times, but it was a time because we were also teenagers and everything was, we didn't have quite the responsibility we do now as adults. It was just a different time. So I think we looked at everything, our perspective on life was different. I think like I said, you created a space that allowed us to explore.
Well, listen, you were teenagers, and teenagers, we always talk about they're just hormone-driven young animals, and here all these young people, they're gay, and they want to have sex, but they can't meet anybody. And so this one of the principles of the club was they can come down and meet other people and and meet people for sex because that's what they wanted to do. One of the reasons another reason I wanted to start the club wasn't just because I loved throwing parties starting back to Eureka, but I remember when I was 14, 15, and 16 and growing up in Los Angeles, I knew what I wanted and I didn't get it. And I didn't have, I kind of knew in my head that if I went up to Hollywood Boulevard, maybe I could meet somebody there. But that was very edgy, and I wasn't comfortable with the idea of catching a bus up there, and I really didn't know what to do. If I had known there was a club where I could go to, where I could be accepted for I am, I would have come out probably 5-6 years earlier. And, I don't have too many regrets in life, but one of my big regrets is that I didn't come out back then, and I lost all those teenage years of sexuality. And you can't, I can't get it back. You just ain't going to get it back, and it's gone. It's out the window, and it's a shame. And so one of the reasons I did the club was so young gay people can meet other gay people safely. And that's part of the problem. Sometimes when you meet people, it ain't safe. Mm-hmm. But if you met them at my club, it was safe. Nobody, that in all the years that we had the club there, I never heard of one instance of anybody having an unsafe experience from somebody they met at the club. I've heard plenty of times that people had unsafe experiences with people they met on the streets, but I never heard of one from about somebody you met at the club. It may have not been the best experience of your life, but it was safe. Maybe, that person really didn't know what they were doing. Anyway, but listen, I want to talk about, I've got some memorabilia here. This is a cup that was made at that reunion I was telling you about with over 300 people, and it's got a picture of the poster they put out, City Nightclub reunion, Saturday, August 30th, and they got a picture of me back then sitting behind the counter with the cash register where people came in to join the club. That's really cute. And Damon gave me this cup today, which was one of the ads we used to run in all the papers, which said, expose yourself to the City Nightclub. And there was this guy exposing himself. This was taken over off of an ad that was run by Mayor Yorty, Sam York, I think it was. I can't remember exactly. And he had this ad that said, expose yourself to art. And he was standing there in front of a statue of some kind, opening up the code here, exposing himself to art. And I thought that was cute, so I made it expose yourself to the City Nightclub based on what the mayor did. And it was controversial too, like everything else. But that's the whole thing, it was controversial because what we were telling young gay people is that it's okay to be gay. And it is okay to be gay. And I'm worried that what's going on right now is that there are people now are getting in power that are saying it ain't okay to be gay. And I hate to see gay people, especially young gay people, going back to what it was like back in the early days of the City Nightclub when they were being told day in and day and night that it's not okay to be gay, it's not okay to be a lesbian. And they were being thrown out of their homes, and they were being discriminated against, and they were getting beaten up in school and all this kind of stuff. And I'm afraid that we could be going back to that. And I hope, we can't go back there. We just cannot go back there. But there are these forces out there that are trying to do that, and I'm really concerned. One of the things they're talking about is they want to make it a Christian nation. You hear all about this Christian nationalism, and they want to turn it into a Christian nation now. And what does that mean? Well, the Bible's going to rule, right? And what does the Bible say? The Bible says kill homosexuals. So they're going to say, well, all right, that's what the Bible says we should be doing. Let's start doing it. And so it's really very, very, very threatening. And the club was designed to make people feel good about it. And now we've got this big movement trying to tell people they shouldn't feel good about it. And that's just absolutely wrong. And that's why I think your documentary you're making can be so important, because it will showcase, it's going to showcase, one, what the young people were doing back then from all the videos, from the TV shows. It's going to show them dancing, having a good time. It's going to show them being together. It's going to show them performing. It's going to show all this kind of stuff, what it was like to be in the club. And then you're going to be talking to them when they're adults and seeing how being in the club shaped their life as an adult. And one of the things that you should be asking them, I think, is what do you think it's going to be like if we lose these rights? Have they thought about that? The fact that they're now, gay marriage is straight, same-sex marriage is okay, and this kind of stuff. What is their life going to be like if we lose those rights? These rights that you actually grew up and saw come into existence. Because when you got started as a young person, it wasn't like that. But during this next 30, 40 years that you were growing up, these things improved. Now, what are you going to do? How are you going to feel if we start having these rights taken away from us?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That you should ask that.
Yeah, I should. I absolutely should. It's also really important, like you said, to get those youth registered to vote.
Yeah, you got to get,
Because a lot of these generations they've only seen that oppression like on TV or in news footage. Like they've never experienced it in the ways that previous generations did.
Well, they did a survey. I think it was what was a polling firm that Gallup poll did a survey of Generation Z, and they said, I think it came out with like 29% of Generation Z don't identify as straight. They're not identifying as gay, but they don't identify with that way, and so this is a sizable section of the population, and these people have got to realize that if they're going to have their sexual orientation to be questioning or whatever, it's not going to be, conforming to the straight Christian, thing, like man and woman, blah, 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 blah. They're going to lose that right. And they've got to get out there and they've got to register to vote, and they've got to get out and vote and make sure that they don't go back to the period of time when you were a 15-year-old and you were coming to my club and you were scared about anyone finding out, and the club was the only place you feel safe. Generation Z probably feels pretty safe wherever they are. But there's people out there who's going to make it so you don't feel safe ever again. And this is why I think your documentary is so important, because it can show the changes that by showing what it was like for the young people back then, talking through them nowadays is how they are now. It can show people what the change are and the dangers that we are facing if we lose the rights that we have gained.
Yeah, I think that showing that queer safe spaces can totally change people's lives. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. These young people, they all tell me, yeah, it changed my life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I've had many tell me they were considering suicide. And the club has changed their life and made them feel about it's okay. And now we are getting to the point where there are people out there who are trying to make it go back the way it was, where kids will feel bad about being gay, they'll feel suicidal about being gay, and we can't allow that to happen. We can't allow that. That's one of the reasons what I have this show here. It's not just about gay, it's about drug reform, it's about marijuana, it's about civil rights and all this kind of stuff, and that we can't allow this to happen. And I'm hoping to encourage people, I'm very much involved in politics. We have to be involved in politics. We've got to take the power. We can't, if we don't take the power, we're going to lose the power. That's just that simple. It's not going to, wishing is not going to make it so. You've got to get there and get active. You've got to make it. Okay. Well, Damon, listen, I want to thank you for being on the show with you tonight. I'm looking forward to this documentary that you're doing. I've been hoping somebody would be doing that for years, and keep on up. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of work.
You bet it is, because you have hundreds and hundreds of hours, and you're going to go back to Portland, and you're going to be interviewing more people. And by the way, if anybody's listening, how can people get hold of you if they want to talk to you about that?
Yeah, you can I'm in the City Nightclub Facebook group, so that has I think over 2,000 members, so you can message me on Facebook. You can reach out to me at nextdamon@gmail.com.
Next Damon, N-E-X?
N-E-X-T-D-A-M-O-N.
Next Damon.
At Gmail.
At gmail.com. Okay, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. They got this Facebook page with over 2,000 people on it, and that's amazing. These people. This is from stuff 30, 40 years ago, and they all get together on this Facebook page to do that. So, okay. Well, hey, listen. Next week on our show, we're going to be calling in. So I'm hoping that you'll take the time to give us a call. We got some wonderful things to discuss. So please, tell your friends about Lanny Sense. It is the most unusual show that KCA Radio has ever had, because, like I say, and you're getting that, I am KCA's resident gay, woke, liberal, pot-smoking, race-mixing, tree-hugging, left-handed, science-affirming, Jewish, humanist, atheist, a white evangelical Christian nationalist worst nightmare. And you're listening to that show. Remember, KCAA is the radio station that leaves no listener behind, and Lanny Sense is the radio show that leaves no gender behind.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by